Evening, Wenche. Evening, Alison. Let me just... How are you enjoying the nice warm weather we've got now?
But what that does, it leaves space for England. Morgan Rogers and Gordon.
Still quite warm here. I don't know about anybody else, but it is still quite hot. Well, I've got the fan going behind me. Oops. 2, 3, 4. Let's have a look. Oh, Wenche, it should be in there. Evening, Julie. I can't look at the moment. It should be in there, but I will look after class because it has been done and it has been uploaded, so I'm not sure why you're not able to see it at the moment. Not quite sure what's happened there, but I will have a look at that after class. Strange. Although it's technology, it's always strange with myself. Oh, coolest room in the house. I think we're at... What's our temperature at the minute? At the moment we're at 28 degrees. So yeah, it's a little bit warm still. Right, so what we're going to do, last week, for those of you that were here, oh, my computer's gone slow. Yeah, so last week, those of you that were here, we did the covers and we did the pages. So yeah, I've got 2 windows open, Julie, and I've got my fan behind me, so that's going quite well. Right, just give it a minute or two for a couple more to join us. Okay, so before we start, if you're crafting along, what we need to do, we did the covers and the hinge last week. I'm not actually going to cover them tonight, but what I am going to do before I forget is I'm going to decide which pages I want, which papers I want on the front and the back. So I want that one on the front, I think if I can get it just right, I might be able to get a bit tight. Might actually go for that one instead. So I'm going to have that on my front page, and probably a plainish one, maybe the blue, on the back. And the reason I take these out now is because if I don't, I end up using them, and I would quite like to have the ones that I want for, I'm going to have that one for the back. So I'm going to take them out and put them separate to one side so I don't inadvertently use them. Okay. So we've got our pages from last week. So if you remember, you've got your small section here. You've got room for putting your photo mats in there, and when you turn it over, there's one there. So on the page, front of page 1, we're going to cut a flap for the top, and it's a fairly straightforward. So we're going to cut it at 5.5 inches. Thought I had 2 sheets there. So 5.5 inches by 6 inches. Don't forget, keep all your off cuts because you will use some of them later on. And we're going to score this on the 6-inch side at 1/2 inch. Pop that away. And I'm just going to burnish this down. And this is just being stuck at the top of this page so that it lifts up although we will put other things underneath it when we decorate. So just line that up at the top and hold that in place while we burnish it. So that just lifts up there and you've got your top flap. Okay. Now if we turn this over, so I'm going to write on, this is the front of page 1. This is page 2, 3, 4, 5, whoops, 6, just so I don't confuse, well, so there's less chance of me confusing myself. So on the back of page 1 and the front of page 2, we're going to do 2 pockets along the bottom here. So we need to cut 2 at 6 inches, which you will be able to get out of the offcut from the flap we did before. Hang on, something's going on. I've got a fly in my room as well. I've done that. So we're doing it, and we're actually doing it at 3 inches, and we're going to cut this down to 7 inches. No, we're not. 5.5, 6.5 inches. So cut that down to 6.5 inches, and then we're going to cut this in half. So you've got 2 at 6.5 inches by 3 inches, and that's going to form 2 pockets to go on the bottom of our pages. So for just a standard pocket, on the short 3-inch side, we're going to score at 1/2 inch. And then on the longer 6.5 inch side, we're going to score at 1/2 inch and at 6 inches. And we're going to do that on both pockets. So we're going to score at 1/2 inch and at 6 inches on the long 6.5 inch side, and then we're going to score at 1/2 inch on the 3-inch side. Put my scoring board away. Tidied up before and tidied up my scissors, so we'll use these instead tonight. I'm just going to miter the corners, so you go up to the score line and then just move your scissors slightly. So just going to go up to the score line and angle that off. Get rid of the bits. Once again, just cut up to the intersection of the score line and angle it off. And the only reason for doing that is that when you fold over your hinges, if you like, to put it on, to put your pocket on, because it reduces the bulk at the corner, so you won't have as much bulk at the corner. So I'm going to do that on both of them. Okay. Evening, Beth. Ooh, I bet it's not going to be quiet in your house tonight, Beth, if they're watching the football. Evening, Christine. Right. Ooh. For those of you that aren't aware, I've just got a really bad smell. I actually live up not far from where there are moorland fires in Saddleworth, and I think the wind's changed direction because I've just had a really strong smell of smoke coming across, which isn't great. So that's that one done. And then I'm going to do this one. I'm just going to pop that at the bottom of this page. Okay. So, whoops. Now I'm going to look at what papers I'm going to use for the front. Now, one of the things to remember, so in this collection that I'm using, and in a lot of the Stamperia collections, and a lot of some of the other collections as well, you get these cut aparts, which are just slightly under, I think they're just 5.5 by 3.5, so they're just a bit smaller than a 6x4 photograph, but they're really handy for tucking into your pockets. So I'm going to take that page out, because you can't really use it for much else, but you do have these plainer sections on the back. So I'm going to move that out the way. If you get bored, you can always sit. I tend to do this in front of the TV. I'll sit and fussy cut all this out. You've only got your bits on the back, but you've got that long piano piece and all these different pieces of musical ephemera. So front of page, I'm going to take this out as well, because these are all your tags. Once I've cut them out, you can actually put do a hole punch on that. If you do get, because this has two full collections in it, you can use the back of one, but I'm going to move one out of the way so I don't cut them both up by mistake. And the same for this one. So on this one, you've got, this makes a little envelope pocket. You've got 3 bookmark tags, long tags. You've got these smaller cut aparts, and as you can see, you've got coordinating patterns on the back. Now these two, there is a definite line, it's probably easy to see it there, and they actually fold up, so you've got like a little booklet. So take that one out as well. Now I'm going to choose which ones papers I'm having for the front page. I'm going to use that. And with Stamperia, on the back of the front page of the book, you've got all these like musical notes, words and phrases, a little bit more of the musical notes. Music starts where speech ends. You can change the world. Music is the universal language. So you can cut these up and use them in your book as well. Or, and I have seen, and I can't remember which one it was, somebody who just needed a little piece of this, and used the front section up and cut these bits up and use those in their books as well. There's lots you can do with that. So, for my first, there we go, because I have got 2 of these collections. So now I've taken all them out, I know that if I come to this section and I want to use the blue note paper, I can do, because it's not going to, I've still got my tags. So let me put them there. I'm going to use this one. So our main pages are 5.5 centimetres squared. So I'm going to cut these at about 5 1/4, just over 5 1/4. It's actually going to be 5 5/8. Just to give us a little bit of a reveal around the page. If you want more of a reveal, you could cut it at 5 1/4. If you want it at less of a reveal, you can cut it at 5 6/8. It's entirely up to you, but you will just have this small reveal around the edge. So this is going to be the front page of my book. I might have to close the windows in a minute, which is a shame because I had a nice breeze going. So somebody asked me a couple of days ago, why do I use glue and not double-sided tape when making my books? The reason being, I used to use double-sided tape, and I still use double-sided tape for certain aspects of it. And if I'm maybe card baking or something like that. The reason I use the glue is that once it's adhered, it's stuck properly. I've been making books. I'm just looking around my craft room now, and some of these books are going back to, aging myself now, but going back to sort of 2012 when my boys, in fact the very first book I did, yes, it's about 2012, and I used to use double-sided tape, and I found that when I moved them, the tape had dried out, and so all the papers had fallen off the pages. So I changed and stopped using double-sided tape on it, just because I was then having to go back and re-stick them, because the tape had dried out. And I know a lot of people that used to swear by photo glue. Unfortunately, the same things happened with a couple of books that I used photo glue on, and the glue just, I think, dried out. It was a different sort of consistency to like proper PVA glue, and yeah, for some reason it's dried out, which isn't a great move. Now for the inside of this one, I'm actually going to turn the page over and use the blue from the back, just for a little bit of difference. I'm going to mark where I'm going to cut it, and then I'm going to trim this down. Ink up the edges. One thing I will say, if you're using Stamperia paper, is they do glue their pads together, but it is quite easy to pull the glue off the edges. So I'm going to pop that on there, and I'm going to use this corner detail up in this corner. My screen keeps going black on me. I hope you're still there, because according to my computer it's gone. No, it seems to be working again now. Technology's great, isn't it? So, gonna pop the glue on the back of here. I wouldn't put, I know some people think I put an awful lot of glue on when I do this, but it is only small amounts. I do it so that it gets a really good adherence I did a crafting class at a ladies group the other week, and there was so much glue used that about 10 minutes later the paper was still moving. So you only need a thin amount. The other thing you can do, well, I haven't got one to hand, is if you get a big blob of glue, do you remember the old glue spreaders we used to get in school? And just spread that along, or even get an offcut of card and move it along the page like that, and that will give it a better adherence. So for the top of this page, I'm actually going to use the same, so it's the opposite corner from the page that we used, but I'm going to use that because I quite like those two together. So again, I'm just going to make a pencil mark where it needs trimming on both sides. Oops. Sorry, going to have to watch the England. Beth, I was relying on you to keep me up to date with the score. Although, living round here, I don't think I need to. I think I will hear if we score. Enjoy it, and let's hope the right team win. So again, I'm just going to ink up the edges. And again, I'm just going to line that up with that at the top corner. Okay, so I'm just going to slide that into place. And the other good thing about this glue that I use is if you do happen to squidge it out the edges, it does rub off quite well and it dries clear. Now what I could do with some of these offcuts is actually place that there. I'm going to leave that until I've done more of the book, because I might need those bits for something else. Okay, so now we're doing the back of page 1 and the front of page 2. So again, we'll choose our papers. Now this time I want it going across, so we've got the same paper going across. Might do that one. I think I'm going to use this one. So our pages are 5.5. So if I cut that just under, I can get the full width across, and then I may be able to use that bit on another page. So for now, we're just going to score it at just under the 5.5. Move that bit out of the way. And again, going to score it just under the 5.5 again. But this time, what I'm going to do, instead of just counting 5.5 and 5.5, because we've got this word going over the middle, I'm actually going to cut it at 6 inches, which is the halfway point. And then cut from the outside in. So I'm going to spin that round and cut that just under the 5.5. So that will go on there. And then again, I'm going just under the 5.5. And keep these little strips, because you will be able to use them when we get to the end of the book to cover these small sections before when it gets put in the book. So keep them to one side. Now, so when you put the pages together, it flows across like that. So the easiest way I found of doing the pockets is line it up, get a piece of card. So I've got my white card there to show where the edge of the pocket is. I'm going to line that up where I want it, leaving a margin at the bottom. And then again with my pencil, I'm just going to make a pencil mark. And then trim that down. And we're just going to ink up the edges. And then this one will just go in at the top of the page. Tucked in slightly. So I'm going to put the pocket piece on. And I'm going to line that up. If you're not sure where your pocket ends, just pop a piece of white card, a piece of paper, and that will give you so this will literally just slide down and just overlap slightly under there. So again, we're going to pop the glue on the back. Line that up and then burnish that. So you'll see there, they actually follow on from each other. Okay, so again, exactly the same with this one. I'm going to use my offcut of white, pop it in on an angle, and just make a mark where I need to cut. So again, I'm going to trim the bottom bit off for the pocket. Oops. So again, I'm gonna pop some glue on there. And again, just line that up like that. One of the good things about this Sticks to glue that I use, it is quite a fat nozzle, but actually it's inverted there, so it's quite a small space for the glue to come so you don't get huge gloopy lumps of glue coming out. So just line that up again. And burnish that down. So for those two pockets, we're going to use, we're going to put in 2 photo mats, which are 5 1/4 inches square. So 5 1/4. And again, keep your offcuts because they will come in for, and if you don't find that you use them in the book, if you have a small die cutting machine, or if you have a die cutting machine and a small die alphabet, she says trying to find hers, I have one and the letters actually just fit on there, so any odd bits of card you can then cut letters out and spell people's names or a word, a place, anything like that. So it is worth keeping those odd bits as well. So that's our photo mats. As you see, it's just got a small amount of reveal around the edges there. So I'm going to pop that to one side, and we're now going to work on the back of page 2 and the front of page 3. Okay, so for this one, again, it's 2 pockets, but these 2 pockets are vertical pockets that are going on the outside of the pages. Now, some of these offcuts that we've just, there we are, no, not that one. So on one of the offcuts that I used is actually, so it's exactly 6.5 by 3 inches, which is what we want to make the pocket. And I'm just going to start on another sheet of card. So I'm going to cut this down to the 3 inches. Make sure it's lined up square at the top. And 6.5, spin that round. Okay, so for these pockets we're going to do exactly the same, and we're going to score and mitre the corners. So on the 6.5 inch side we're going to score at 1/2 inch and at 6 inches. and then spin it round, and on the 3-inch side we're going to score at 1/2 inch, and that's exactly the same on both pockets. So they're quite easy pockets to make, so these are quite easy pages for you to do in the book. Okay. So again, we're just gonna cut up to the intersection, move your scissors slightly, and then we're going to get rid of both of those corners. And there we go. I find it amazing how it's the same coloured cardstock by my eyesight, but when I look on screen it's actually coming out as different colours. But from here where I'm sat, it's the same card, it's the same weight, it's just being picked up differently on screen, I'm not sure. Good morning, Lynn. How are you doing? So Lynn, are you Wednesday morning or Thursday morning where you are? You're ahead, aren't you? Okay, so these pockets are going to go on the outside. So you slide your photo mats in. So again, I'm just going to pop some glue on these sections. And we're just going to line that up with the outside edge. And the reason I've done it that way is that when you've got your photo mats in, if you're holding your book, they're not going to slide out off the edge. So again, we're going to pop some glue on. Again, we're going to turn that round and just slide that up to the edge. And burnish that down. So for this one, I'm going to use, down to paper choice again, ladies, this could be a while. I quite like the top part of that. Now, I do like this lady, but unfortunately, if we put her on any of the pages or the book, you'd either get just a head, or so I can't really use her in this book. I have on something else that I've made with these papers and used her on the front of something. So again, our book pages are 5.5 inches. So we'll go to the 5.5 inches, and then I'm just going to pull it back about 1/8 of an inch and cut that across. Now this time, because I want to keep this across the top, I'm going to work from the left hand side. So again, I'm going to pop my white spare white card there, and then I'm just going to get another smaller piece, not quite small enough, and pop that there. So I know that's my pencil. How much of a reveal I want at that corner. So by putting the white there, I can see how much a reveal there is. If I take that away, it's a bit difficult to see. So pop your white piece there. I know this is where my pocket is, so I want to cut that about there. So for this one, I'm going to work from the left hand side across, rather than as I did on the other one, working from the middle out. So make sure it's straight. So that's the first bit. And then I'm just going to butt that up to there. Make sure that's lined up straight. Now if I do that, I'm going to lose part of the E. So what I'm going to do is move that over slightly, so that when I cut that down, I'm not cutting the E off. I might lose a few of these little leaves here, but that's okay. It's literally just 3 leaves. So when I line this up, I don't know if you can see there, I'm making sure that the cut line is just after the E. So I've kept all that E there. So there's a little bit more going underneath. But when you put that together, the rest of the pattern matches up. So I'm going to ink the edges on here. I think quite a few of my neighbours are watching the football with the windows open, because every so often I keep hearing these random noises. So I'm going to pop some glue on there. Helps if you take the lid off. Now the good thing about using double-sided papers is if you don't like what's on one side, or if it doesn't fit with your project, you can turn it over and use the other side. Whereas if it was single-sided papers and you didn't like what was on the paper, you're kind of stuck with it. There's not an awful lot you can do. So it's quite nice having double-sided papers, although it does make it tricky to decide at times. So again, I'm just going to slide that in there, line that up, and that follows. You lose the ends of those 3 leaves, but that's not a great amount. Thank you, Christy. I don't think it's been going long, so that's okay at the minute. So again, what I'm going to there's my piece of paper. I'm torn now because I quite like the splats and the blue, but I like this bit as well, and I don't think there's a way of getting it all in. Or is it? Yes, I can. So, and this is what I mean about looking at your papers. So I do like the way this follows on here, but it seems a shame to cut that off at that end. And this is probably why it takes me so long when I'm making books to make a decision on which bit of the paper I'm going to use. So again, I'm just going to mark that and trim it off. So, Christine, where are you watching from? I'm curious to see where else is showing the match. So again, pop the glue on the back and just line that up like that. So now I can use, just pop that up against there so I don't get confused, that section of the paper, and you've still got the blue splatters here. So I'm going to ink those 3 edges and use that bit. In fact, I'm going to cut this down because this could come in useful at a later date, at a later page in the book. You're in, all right, okay, we'll say no more. So again, we're just going to pop some glue on the back. I was watching one of the, I can't remember which game it was, and I really felt for the commentators, because even looking at the names on the back of the shirts, I had absolutely no clue how they should have been pronounced. I mean, there was one of them and it looked like it had about 26 letters in the name. It was really long. So I did feel a little bit sorry for the commentators, but they're getting to watch the game for free, so it wasn't that much. So again, I'm going to cut our 2 photo mats, and again we're going to cut them down to 5 1/4 by 5 1/4. That's one, and here's the next one. 5 1/4 by 5 1/4. So we've got our 2 photo mats. Oops. There. So that's the front of page 1, back of page 1, front of page 2, and then the back of page 2 and the front of page 3, all done. I'm going to turn that over, move those out of the way. So for these two, we're going to have 2 flaps, one at the top and one at the bottom on both pages. So the flaps need to be 5.5 inches wide by 3, 5.5 wide by 3.5. So I'm going to cut this down to 5.5 inches wide. So we're going to cut 2 at 3.5 and another one at 3.5. So that's pages for the back of page 3. So for the front of page 4, again we're going to cut that down to 5.5. And then we're going to cut 2 down at 3.5. 1, 2. Move that out of the way and get our scoreboard. Now on these, because they're just a flap and not a pocket, sorry, I just need a drink. We're just going to score on the 3.5 inch side at 1/2 inch. So I'm going to do that on all 4 of the flaps. Okay, and I'm just going to pop this scoreboard away. So again, we're just going to fold these over and burnish them down. And we're going to do that for all 4. So again, get our glue out. Pop some glue on the top. And just burnish that down. And then again, just going to line that up at the bottom. And hold that down. So again, so these flaps, top and bottom, do slightly overlap. I think it's about 1/2 inch they overlap. So again, we're just going to line that up at the top. Oh dear. I might have to get up and shut my windows in a minute, which is not great in this heat. So I'm just going to pop that at the bottom like that. Okay. So again, we're back to choosing paper. So for this one, what I could do for the inside, so where you lift up the top and the bottom, your paper is long enough, if you're using 12 by 12, that you could, so if you cut it down to just under your 5.5 vertically and have them all following on. So I'll show you what I mean by that. So we know it's 5.5 inches wide. Okay. So this bottom section, I'm going to cut that there. So I'm going to trim that bit off. So then this section needs to be trimmed there. So then this top section needs to be trimmed here. So as you can see, that will follow all the way down as the one picture, which I've just thought I could have done that with the lady with the heart. Never mind, we'll perhaps use her on another one. So that's the top one done. And ink the edges up. Okay. Just having a quick read. Christine's been to, vacation in Miami. Amazing. strange that they showed the football matches with Spanish. I would have thought in Miami the most popular language would have been English American rather than Spanish. So just move that round. And make sure you've got plenty of glue on. I have completely cut this wrong, cut it on the wrong one. But because I used wet glue, she says, lift that bit up. And line that up like that. How strange. So what I can do now is put it in the right way round. And then I can paper piece that back together, which was a complete, I did this so I can show you how to put it right if you ever do this moment. Definitely planned. I can't find my pencil mark, it's there. So again, I'm just going to re-ink that edge. Pop some glue on there. I think this bottle may be running out. Oh, that's what I've done. That's upside down. I think I'm too tired and too hot to be measuring and cutting paper tonight. I know exactly what I've done. So tonight has been a lesson in what not to do or how to correct your mistakes. So I'm going to blame the heat getting to me for making all these mistakes tonight. Oh dear. Yeah, I suppose Miami is quite low down, isn't it? Towards Mexico. I'm not that great on geography. But yeah, I guess it is really trust what you do first time round. Yeah, I have been to international matches when Scotland have played, and their fans, they're insane. They don't always care if they lose. They just carry on and enjoy themselves, which is what it's all about, I guess. So how not to do a following down page. So that opens up like that, and then and because these overlap slightly, I'm just going to use some plain papers. So I know it's 5 1/4 inches across. So I'm going to trim this down. It's 5 1/2 inches across. I'm going to trim it down to just under 5 1/4. 5 1/2, I should say. Again, keep hold of these. So I'm going to line this up. And trim that down to there. And then exactly the same, going to line that up, and that needs trimming to there. Okay. So again, I'm just going to ink the edges of the paper. Sometimes, especially if you're using quite dark papers, and certainly against black cardstock, it does help if you ink the edges, because, and I'll show you on the next one, pop your glue on, line that up, and that will go there. So if you put that against there, because that's got a white core, sometimes it will stand out against the black. If it's quite a dark, I haven't got any to hand, quite a dark patterned paper that you're using, it will stand out, the white core will stand out a little bit, or in some cases it can stand out quite a lot, especially if you're using thicker paper like graphic 45 or something like that. It does stand out a lot, which is why I like to ink the edges, so it just smooths that out. Okay, so I'm going to pop that so that follows down, and that's on there. So I'm going to leave that for now because I'm getting a little bit tired. So that's page 1, page 2 and page 3 done. So next week, we've got 4, 5 and 6, right. There is no class next week as I will be on a Greek island somewhere. So class will resume on the, let me double check the dates, 29th of July. So it's there's no class for just 1 week, and then we're back on the 29th of July, and we'll be decorating the front of page 4, and then we'll be working our way through the rest of the book. If you have got a kit, like I say, you can be cutting out the you can be cutting the fussy cutting out from the back of the on the back page. Sit with your feet up and do that. So, oops, we will get that sorted. So, as I say, no class next week, but it will be back the week after, and we'll carry on with that. And just as I'm sorry, I'm going on holiday for just over a week. I will be putting a discount code up in the shop, or for the shop. Start again. Put a discount code up in the group for the shop if you want any crafting goodies. Just as long as you're aware, they won't be posted out until 29th of July. But there will be a little cheeky discount code on there for you. Okay, so have a lovely time whatever you're doing for the next week or so. Let's hope the football results go the way we want them to. And I will look into why the measurements aren't uploading into the files. I'll have a look at that. If I can't get it sorted, I will speak to my son, who is my tech support, and see if there's anything he can do. But we'll get that sorted and hopefully uploaded either later tonight or tomorrow. Have a good time, and I'll see you soon. Bye.